You see, I am a simple college student living alone in a house. I was very enthusiastic about the release of Pokemon HeartGold and SoulSilver here in the States. I have purposely locked myself out of all media and the internet aside for school purposes. As I was busy with the school year and being poor at the time, I wasn't able to buy SoulSilver on its launch date. After my school year ended, I ordered SoulSilver on Amazon. However, it would take a week for it to arrive. I decided that during that time, I would replay my Pokemon Crystal version on the Game Boy Color. However, I realized that long ago, my mom threw it away because I told her to save when dead, and I was very upset about it then. She also threw away my Silver version, so all I have left is my Game Boy Color from my childhood. As such, I set out some local yard sales, and found a copy of Silver version. I asked how much the guy wanted for it. $1 later, I went back home to my house. I went home and started it up for a nostalgia trip. However, that's where things started to get bizarre. The Game Freak logo started up as normal, but it just froze there. I thought the cart was just errored or something, so I turned it off and on. The same thing happened. I tried pressing A and start over and over again, and just pressing all the buttons in vain hope that something would happen. Eventually, the logo vanished, and there was a black screen for about 5 seconds. Suddenly, rather than going to the usual menu screen, I was already in the game in a previous save file, which was odd as I was expecting all these carts to been wiped by the poor battery at this time. Either way, I wasn't complaining, as I would have chosen to continue just to see what the previous guy did. First off, I checked his trainer information. His name was just ... He didn't have much originality. I checked his profile, and apparently he had 999 hours put into the game, with all 16 badges, the max amount of money, and all 251 Pokemon in the Pokedex. Seeing as he apparently had Mew and Celebi logged in too, I'm guessing he either used a Game Genie or was a really hardcore Pokemon player back then. I checked his Pokemon to see what badass team he has. To my surprise, I only saw 5 unknown and a 6th Pokemon named Hurry. I was thinking this must have been just some cruel joke the previous owner did to the game, but I decided to check the profiles of all the Pokemon anyway. As expected, they were different letters of unknown, all at level 5. I was a bit shaky with my unknown alphabet at the time, but I identified the words to spell out the word leave. As for the 6th Pokemon, I turned out to be a Cyndaquil. Now mind you, this was before there were individualized Pokemon icons. The Cyndaquil looked normal, but it was level 5 with only 1 HP left, and with only the moves Leer and Flash. I don't know why they named him Hurry, but at the time, I just disregarded it. The most eerie thing that was present, despite my volume being at max, none of my Pokemon cheered their cries, just pure silence. Having enough of this team, I closed it. I was parked at what appears to be a room inside the Bellsprout tower. However, for some reason, there were no NPCs around to talk to. Even more eerie was the pillar wouldn't move. It's as if it was on its side somehow. There was no music at all. And there was no exit or ladder, or at least I thought there wasn't. I walked around for a few minutes, but I can't seem to find a way out. This was certainly not a room I've seen in the Bellsprout Tower before in the original games. I tried checking my items for an escape rope, but the bag was completely empty. There wasn't any wild Pokemon to encounter either. Finally, I managed to find a ladder, which turned out to be behind the pillar. The screen turned black, and the music finally started playing. I had a sudden chill as I recognized that melody. I heard it to be the theme you hear when you listen to the radio at the Alph Ruins, where the Unknown are. I immediately realized that it wasn't a loading transition, but rather a dark room that I would need to use Flash in. Before I took care of that though, I immediately checked my Pokegear to change the radio to something more pleasant. But it turns out that there was no radio card, or even a phone or time card for that matter. There's only a map card in which Gold, the player, was just walking in a mist of black. I recall that Cyndaquil has Flash, so I turn off my Pokegear and make Cyndaquil use the move Flash. I didn't see any message saying that Hurry used Flash or anything like that. The room just became lit just like that, and I soon regretted it. The room was a chilling blood red with a linear gray path heading south. The ladder I used to go up and down wasn't there either. I had no choice but to head south. The screen got darker every 20 steps I made, until I finally made it to the end, which appears to be a sign. I read the sign, which said, "Turn back now." Suddenly, I was asked to answer yes or no, but there was no question asked. I chose yes, as I do not know what it was asking. And the screen went black again, making a ladder climb sound. The unknown radio music stopped, and in a few seconds was replaced with the not as creepy poke flute radio music. I was in another dark room, but I held my breath and used Flash again. Suddenly, it said that Hurry has fainted, which was odd since I recall there was no status condition like poison on him, and I clearly wasn't in a battle. I checked my Pokemon quickly, and suddenly he's no longer in the party. In fact, after a bit of investigating, none of my Pokemon are there, but instead are replaced with level 10 Unknown. I did the same thing as before, and spelled out the unknown. My then team Unknown spelled, "He died." Either way, after that creepy change, the room was lit to reveal myself in a very small room that appears to be only 4 squares big. The walls of that room were gray bricks, as if I was inside something that was hollowed out. Outside that room appears to be a bunch of graves, similar to the ones in Pokemon Red and Blue. I've walked around that small room and pressed A, but nothing happened. I've already concluded that this was clearly a hacked game that some sadistic fuck sold me at a yard sale. However, my curiosity kept me going. I checked the trainer profile of ... again, only to find out the sprite of Gold was missing his arms. He also seems to appear less smug, but rather seems more sad and empty in a way that I really don't know how to describe. For some reason, it also said that he had 24 badges, which was clearly impossible. After a few minutes of aimless wandering, my character suddenly spun into the escape rope spinning animation. Instead of flying up though, my character spun downward slowly, as if he was sinking. After that screen, the music stopped. After finally landing, the overworld sprite of Gold is colored differently. Now, instead of the usual red color he dons, he appears completely white now, including his skin. It's as if he came straight from the colorless Game Boy games placed into a colored background of Game Boy Color. I checked his profile, and now, while as white as his overworld sprite, he lost his legs and has what appears to be bloody tears from his eyes. It also says he now has 32 badges, which now starts to disturb me, as this change of number seems to represent something rather important that I don't know about. I also checked my Pokemon, which this time contained 5 Unknown and a level 100 Celebi without a nickname. The Unknown are this time level 15 and spelled out the word dying. I checked the Celebi's profile. It was a shiny Celebi, except there is only half the sprite. 1 leg, 1 arm, 1 eye, and it only had 1 attack. Perish Song. The area I was in itself was the Sprout Tower with the immobile pillar as before, except everything is apparently red now. I walked north for what felt like forever. Eventually, I finally encountered some generic NPCs. They were all lined up to the side, just facing the long, slantish pillar in the middle. They were also white, and nothing happens when I tried to speak to them. I kept on going north until eventually the pillar finally appears chopped off, with a transparent red in that spot. I went up to red, and without even pressing A, I was suddenly engaged and finally in a battle. The music starts again, which sounds like the unknown radio music again, but played backwards. Gold's battle back sprite matches his front one with the bloody eyes, white skin, and lack of arms, while Red sprite was the same as before in Gold, Silver, Crystal, except transparent. The text simply said, "Wants to battle," as if he had no name, and both of us only had one Pokemon to choose from, which was weird as I swore I had 6 with the unknowns. My shiny Celebi came out, conveniently with half a sprite for the back sprite also. The shiny noise and animation was different, and the sounds it made sound like multiple screech attacks were used consecutively. Red sent out a seemingly normal male Pikachu, except he is level 255, and his sprite seems sad and has tears in his eyes. Rather than the usual fight item Pokemon run menu, I was only given the option to use attacks. Since Celebi only has 1, I chose it naturally. Since Pikachu is level 255, he naturally went first. Pikachu used Curse, lowering his speed and increasing his other stats. I'm not even sure Pikachu could learn Curse. Celebi used Parasong. In 3 turns, both Pokemon get KO'd. Not like I even have a choice. At this point, I didn't even go back to the fight menu, as the battle just continued without me. Also note that there was no animations at all for some reason. Pikachu used Flail, which didn't do much damage despite his level and boost as his health was maxed. Celebi used Parasong. Nothing happens as it was already used. Pikachu used Frustration, which did a shit ton of damage, knocking Celebi down to less than 10 HP. Celebi used Pain Split, which surprised me as Celebi didn't even have that attack in the first place. Now Celebi and Pikachu have about 150 HP each. Pikachu used Mean Look, not like it did anything though. As expected, due to the effects of Parasong, my Celebi fainted. Except in the text it said, "Celebi has died," and instead of ordinary drop-off screen animation, the Celebi back sprite just vanished. For some reason, the Pikachu was still up even with Parasong, as if it didn't even count my loss. Pikachu used one more different attack beyond the 5 attack limit. Pikachu used Destiny Bond. Afterwards, it said Pikachu has died with a slow fade out animation. Apparently I was the winner, as a transparent red sprite showed up and said ... At that point, I just freaked out, as that transparent red sprite was suddenly beheaded, leaving nothing but his transparent body. The battle then ended at that point, and faded out along with the music. I'm back in the overworld, with another change to Gold sprite. He's now as transparent as Red's overworld sprite. I quickly checked Gold's profile, where this time the only thing remains of him is his head, with a transparent skin. The head was zoomed in a bit, showing a black void in his eyes, and now say that he now has 40 badges. I then backed out, and checked my Pokemon. They were all level 20 unknown, that were also shiny, which then spelled out no more. I was at what I now know is next to the end. There was apparently no music playing, but for some reason I still felt like something was there that could be heard. I was back in my room in New Barktown, Maybe finally I get to play this game properly, but who am I kidding? I knew that sadistic fuck must have done something. I walked around the room to interact with things, as I'm a bit afraid to go downstairs to see what was awaiting down there. No, I said walked, as while the background was moving, Gold was not moving his transparent limbs at all while doing so, just floating like those ghosts you see in Diamond and Pearl. As expected, the radio, computer, and TV did not work, so I had no choice but to go down the stairs. I ended up in the same lower level room of my house. Everything appears normal, except my mom isn't home. After failing to interact with anything to this room, I decided to go outside. To my surprise, that door leading outside at the south didn't work, and instead I just walked straight through into the void. I continued moving south to see what the fuck was going on. My house vanishes as I head south into the void. It was creepy as when I entered the void. The outline on Gold's transparent sprite turned white to contrast with the pitch black. Eventually, I reached a white area, and Gold's sprite turned black and transparent again. I continued south without thinking of stopping at all. After a long trek south, I finally encountered something. It was Gold's regular sprite. I talked to it. He said, "Goodbye forever, ... and vanished. As that happened, it said question mark, question mark, question mark, use nightmare, which at that point, I would not deny that being possible. Gold did another escape rope animation, spinning slowly downwards like before. I'm now back into that small hollowed out room, surrounded by graves from earlier, or at least I say I was back there, as there is no sprite anymore. I tried to walk around, but nothing moved. Not even a wall bumping noise. I checked my trainer profile with absolutely no Gold sprite left. It said I have 0 badges, and all the pictures of the Johto gym leaders at the bottom were replaced with skulls. I checked my Pokemon, which were all level 25 unknown. As expected, it spelled out a phrase I had dared to read. I'm dead. As soon as I went back to the overworld, the room I supposedly was in was then covered with the same blocks as the walls. I didn't figure out what exactly that room was when the final text was said, RIP. That room was a big grave, surrounded by other graves. Gold has already been dead. He died presumably a few years after he defeated Red. He was a young trainer who, despite his efforts in collecting so many gym badges and had attempts at becoming a Pokemon master, was still unable to avoid the inevitable fate of death, and his efforts were eventually forgotten by the next generation. I was unable to escape from that text no matter what I pressed. I tried resetting the game and the same thing happened, at which I then finally decided to give up on that horrible nightmare. After that experience, I will never look at the gimmick Unknown the same way again. They say that only the first generation have folk tales and legends, but the second generation has shown me how unpleasant the truth can be. I eventually enjoyed SoulSilver immensely, but I still can't unthink what that rigged game has told me.